Welcome, everybody. My name is Andy Weinstein. I am the CEO of ISS Group. I am joined here by my colleague, Frank Salisi, who is the VP of Solutions Development of ISS Group, and who will be handling the actual controls of the demo once we get through this very brief PowerPoint. For anybody that doesn't know us at ISS Group, I thought I'd go through a brief introduction. ISS Group is now in its 26th year of business. We were founded in 1986, and we were an ERP reseller and implementer for the first 14 years of our existence. Very specifically, we were a QAD reseller in the mid-90s, and we were approached by QAD back in 1995-96 timeframe and asked if we would be interested in web enabling the, at that time called MFG Pro product for QAD. We said, absolutely, we're very interested in that, and we created the first QAD e-commerce module called MFG Pro on the web, Trading Partner Transactions. That was developed jointly in cooperation with QAD, and actually was given the name of the product by Pam Locker, the president and CEO of QAD. Many of QAD's very large end-user organizations, such as Ingersoll Rand and Tyco, Eaton, as you can see, GE Lighting, et cetera, purchased and implemented that e-commerce module, and many of them are still using it to this day. Obviously, it's been upgraded many times since 1996. Many of them are still using it to this day. That e-commerce module was a customer-facing e-commerce solution, allowing order entry, stock status inquiry, AR inquiry, things like this, allowing our clients to allow their customers real-time transactions into their QAD application. In 2001, we were approached by one of our clients, a company called Aspect Medical up in Massachusetts, about a $100 million medical device manufacturer, and asked to expand the functionality of our, what we call TPT product, that was Trading Partner Transactions product, from the customer side to the supply side of the supply chain. And we developed our first version of what we call our iPurchase solution. Our iPurchase solution incorporated our rules-based approval routing engine, which we have rebranded into iApprove. And that's how iApprove was born. So iApprove was actually originally developed back in 2004. It's been obviously upgraded many times since 2004, but it is a mature solution. And as you'll see when I get to the appropriate slides, it is the actual heart of some of our other verticalized solutions, such as iPurchase and iQuote. The business we're in is providing web-based approval routing solutions to the QAD user community. We have many clients throughout the QAD community. We've been in the community now for over 16 years. We have clients in all of the different vertical segments that QAD sells into: medical device, industrial, electronic, and consumer product. And again, the common denominator across all of these clients, and this is a partial list, we have serviced between 250 to 300 QAD clients over the last 15 years in the QAD community. And the common denominator, of course, is that they all are QAD end-user organizations. This is just a picture of our current solutions portfolio. Of course, today we're going to be talking about iApprove. iApprove is the heart of our iPurchase and iQuote solution. We are about to release a new product we call iRFQ. Again, you'll see that in a few more slides as well. And then we have two other products we call iFramework and iBridge. We will be talking a little bit about iFramework today. That is an application development framework that works in conjunction with iApprove. And then we have iBridge, which is an integration tool that we use to integrate our solutions with ERP solutions such as QAD. iApprove is a rules-based approval routing technology. It was designed very specifically to provide organizations a way to route requests throughout the organization based on a set of rules that you, the end user organization, configures. So there's no programming involved. There's a rules configurator that comes along with the iApprove solution, and you create the rules. We'll talk a little bit more, of course, about what rules are, and that's what actually routes the requests to one or more people or groups throughout your organization for review and approval or rejection of that request. Upon approval or rejection of the request, we take an action. In iPurchase, of course, the action is to create an actual purchase order in QAD. In iQuote, the action is to create a sales order out of a sales quote. We have clients that are routing capital expense requests throughout the organization, and upon approval, we create a project in QAD, things like this. Again, iApprove, this is a fairly busy slide, but iApprove is the heart of iPurchase and iQuote solutions. The purpose of this slide is to show that our solutions are real-time integrated with QAD. There is no data replication required. We actually read the QAD tables in real time, the vendor master, the customer master, the item master, the generalized codes and comments and work order files and the GL account file, et cetera, all those files are read in real time, so the data is continued, the master file data is continued to be maintained in QAD. So there is no data replication required. Very specifically for our iPurchase and iQuote solutions, those requests are then routed around the organization for approval. Email notifications then go out upon approval or rejection. Purchase orders and sales orders are then created in the QAD tables as if you were using the QAD maintenance programs, either the order entry program or the PO maintenance program, and then the process continues as if it was created in QAD natively. As I mentioned, we are about to release a new solution of ours we call iRFQ. This solution is being developed for two of our clients, a company called AmeriForge and a company called ANH Refractories. So the requirements came from these two clients. This product should go live before the end of the year. And as you see, I highlighted in red there, the iApprove solution, once again, is the heart of the iRFQ module. This module was developed with our iFramework development tool and uses the iApprove routing technology to route items around the organization for approval prior to an RFQ actually being created. iApprove, some examples of how our clients are using iApprove. As I mentioned, routing purchase order requisitions to create purchase orders, routing sales quotes, companies like Avery Dennison and Laird Technology using our iQuote solution to route sales quotes throughout the organization prior to a sales order being created in QAD. Supplier catalogs, okay, for vendors that are sending in their supplier catalogs. They're routed throughout the organization for approval before the catalog is made live. And CapEx requests, as I mentioned. And today we're actually going to demonstrate in our software demo a very simple use of iApprove, the changing of master file data. We're going to actually demonstrate the ability to change a customer credit limit in the QAD customer master file upon approval of the new credit limit. Some of the feature highlights of iApprove: it is fully, as all our solutions, web-based solution, allowing for anytime, anywhere access, only with a web browser. There's no actual software loaded on the user's machine, whether it's a laptop or desktop, or a mobile device. All of our solutions are mobile enabled. It is real-time integrated with QAD, as I mentioned previously, but our solutions also will work standalone and can be integrated with other ERP solutions for companies that may have hybrid environments. We have clients that acquire new companies that may not have QAD installed. They may have different ERP solutions at different locations and plants, and they want to roll out our solutions to the different locations. They can do that. So real-time integrated with QAD, but also works in hybrid ERP environments. As I mentioned, the approval routing rules are user-defined, and they are defined based on the data within the request. Right? Any and all of the data within the request, and we're going to go through some examples of that in the next couple of slides. There are an unlimited number of rules that can be created, simple rules, complicated rules, and again, I'll show you some examples of that. The rules are completely configurable. It's all point and click, no programming required. And upon submittal of the request, the rules are checked and the routing is determined based on the rules. So it's not a static routing. We call it a dynamic approval routing based on the rules upon request submission. If one of the approvers of a request has the security privileges to make changes to the request, iApprove will actually check the data that was changed and determine if that request needs to be rerouted based on the data change. We allow for simultaneous as well as sequential routing. As it implies, simultaneous means two or more people or groups are notified simultaneously that there's a request outstanding for review and approval. Or sequential, meaning that one person needs to review and approve or reject it before the next person in line is even notified. Obviously, if a person rejects a request, that next person will never even be notified. But if that person approves the request, then it just moves on in the sequence. We allow for group approvals. So let's say you have a buying group or a finance group or an HR group. Group is simply a list or a group of users. All of those users within the group will be notified that there's a request outstanding for review, and only one person is required within that group to actually review, approve, or reject that request. We also have full out-of-office functionality, so if an approver is out of the office, that approver can assign a designee, and both that approver as well as that approver's designee will be notified that there's a request outstanding for review and approval, and then the designee can actually go in on behalf of that approver and approve or reject the request. As I mentioned, the approval will reroute, or the request will reroute upon request change. Okay, we also have both line item as well as entire request approval. We have the concept of supervisory escalation. So if a request is sitting in somebody's queue outstanding for more than a number of days, and that is defined by you, the end user organization, it will escalate to that person's supervisor. And it will continue to escalate through the supervisory, what we call hierarchy. We send out email notifications to all the required approvals. It's completely integrated with Microsoft email as well as Microsoft Outlook. And we also provide the ability to retract a request all the way up to the final approval. So the approver, or actually the person that generated the request, can retract that request and make changes to it and resubmit it for approval. And we keep track of all approval attempts. So if that request is retracted and submitted 25 times, we keep track of all of the approval attempts, and that is all viewable and auditable. Okay? There's no limit to the number of times a request can be retracted and resubmitted for approval. We allow for what's called approval simulation prior to the actual request being submitted, email notification, as I mentioned, to the originator of the request upon final approval and rejection. We have full audit trails, time and date stamped of all approvals and rejections, the ability to add and remove approvers and force a request through an approval cycle. And we're going to demonstrate much of this today. The request queue for approvers, and as I mentioned, mobile functionality. And I'll be sending this presentation out to, of course, everybody who registered for today's webinar as well. So what's a rule? A rule can be based on any and all of the data within the request, Rules are Boolean conditions using and ors, which work together to determine the list of people or groups required to approve a request. So a very simple example, we use the term requisitions for purchase order requisitions. All requisitions greater than $10,000, the CEO or the CFO need to approve the requisition. Very, very simple rule. But a rule can be very complicated as well. All capital requests between $1,000 and $25,000, which include the following departments. And you're going to notice the small or and the big or. So you see the small or is in the first statement, which includes the following departments for Ohio or the Cleveland plant being shipped UPS or FedEx, or the project code begins with an M, or, so it's the first condition or the second condition or the third condition, okay? And then the following people need to approve. So rules can be very, very complicated. We have clients that have some very, very complicated rules, but they can be also very, very simple. No limit to the number of rules that you can set up. Right? You can set up as many rules as you like, right? And you define the rules that route the request. Okay, so today we're going to actually demonstrate a changing of a credit limit. So you're going to see a very, very simple request form for a customer in QAD, okay? Colossal conglomerates. Not sure Frank is going to use this customer, but that's the customer here on the screen. And we're simply going to, that's the current credit limit, $100, and we're going to simply change it to a new credit limit. And you're going to see how that request is then routed through the organization for approval. So it first goes to a submittal, it goes to a pending state, and then approved state, and then you'll see how it changes the actual credit limit in QAD. So this is just a screenshot of the actual people, the approvers, okay, that are assigned to approve a specific request. Again, we have clients that have some very complicated rules that may assign 8 or 9 people to a request for approval, depending on what they're approving. If it's a purchase order requisition for $250,000, it may need literally 8 or 9 sign-offs before that purchase order requisition is approved, before a purchase order is actually created. Okay. Okay, so this is our demo agenda. Frank is going to take it over now, and he's going to walk us through this demo. Frank, let me hand it over to you.
Thank you, Andy.
You have it, Frank? Yeah, there you go.
You got it? Okay.
Yep, you got it.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, we're going to start soup to nuts. We'll go through everything. Try to be as detailed as I can with the time permitting. And we're going to start here. This is the forms generator. This is where you create brand new forms. iApprove will allow you to define your own forms, your own data elements. You pick what fields are on the screen, what their labels are, what type of field it is. Is it just a string, or is it a number? Stuff like that, a date. So you guys make all those decisions through the tool itself. So I'm going to show you the example of the credit limit increase. This here, we prompt for certain fields. One is the table name that you'd like to create in the database, the screen name for the new screen. iApprove will generate a couple of files for you, and it'll place them in this folder. Now, iApprove is part of our iFramework tool. It sits on top of the iFramework tool. The iFramework tool does not have approval logic. That gets added in with iApprove. So this checkbox will tell the system that we want to use approval functionality within this screen. You can build screens that don't have approval functionality. This screen that I happening to show you now does not have any approvals built in, but it was built using the same tool. Okay. no approvals. And I'll show you approvals in a minute, but that will control whether or not we have approvals. The next section here, the next tab, is where we define our data elements. And you'll see I have two data elements. I have a new credit amount and the customer number. Right? These are the two fields, and I can define what type of field they are, what the labels and column labels, are they mandatory, etc. So we define all that, and then we press create form, and it will actually generate us a couple of programs, which I'll show you in just a moment. All right, but that's how you define your form. Once you have a form built, the next thing you want to do is add it to the menu. All right, so here we have menu categories and menu items. We're looking at menu categories, and these will match up with what you see here on the left. Right. Each category has security, and right now we have all items open to everyone. We have a group named the Everyone group, and everyone's a member of that group. So everyone sees everything in my system. All right, but that's our menu categories, and then we have menu items underneath the categories. And here we look at iApprove. We have our credit increase. I've already obviously added this one in, but this is where we define our menu entry. And now it's in the iApprove category. So if I click on the iApprove category, you'll see our credit increase. Okay. So when we first bring up the form, we have our two fields, our customer number and our new credit amount. We also have statuses, and of course I've created some records previously. But we add some status fields to the screen. What's the status of this request, who requested it, and when was it entered? All right. This down here is just a browse of all the records that are in the database. These are all the different credit limit requests that have been put through along with their statuses. Now the first thing I want to do is take you into the code that was generated. There's two files that get created for us from the tool. One is the HTML file. That's this section here, this iacrec.htm. It basically lays out your tabs. We have a tab interface, so it lays out your tabs, and this is our credit increase tab, this guy right here. And it says in that tab, we're going to have our customer number and our new credit amount. Okay, customer number and new credit amount. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to add a lookup to that customer number. I want you to be able to pick from a list. All right, so what I do is we're going to create a dynamic lookup. I'm going to paste that right in. This tells the system that I want a dynamic lookup on that customer number field, and I want you to show me the
Welcome to GoToWebinar, web events made easy. Welcome to GoToWebinar, web events made easy.
in iApprove is audited. We keep track of who made the change, when they made it, and what fields were changed. So if I click on the create up here, up here are all the different people that touched this record, and it's in descending order, so the create is at the bottom. This is when the record was created on October 11th at 12:55 by Frank. These are all the values for the fields when Frank first created that record. But then you see Frank made a change 2 minutes later, changed the credit amount from 100 to 200,000. All right, so every piece of data is audited. Next thing I want to show you is the browse functionality. We have the sortable columns. You see the arrows. You can sort on multiple columns, so I can sort on status and then customer, and it will sort on multiple columns. All right, so these are in order, and then by customer underneath status in order. So multiple columns. We can so these are the current columns that I'm displaying in the browse, but I can choose any of these others to display as well. All right, so I simply let's pick ship via. We'll throw that one in there. Show results, and now the ship via gets displayed. So you can pick and choose which columns you want to see on the browse itself. Next piece of functionality is exporting to Excel. So I can take all that data that's shown down here and actually open it up in Excel. My monitor is a little too big here, so I'm going to shrink it down. So that all shows up in Excel. Next thing is searching. We can search for records, and we have a very sophisticated way of searching. You can pick and choose one or more attributes to search on. So first, let me start off by let me delete these two real quick. We'll start off, just show me the credit requests that are approved. Okay, so we'll show us only the approved. Then I can go further and say, okay, now I also only want to show the ones where the customer is my colossal conglomerates. So I add that in there as well. Okay. But now you can get real fancy where you can start grouping things together. So I can take these two items and group them as OR conditions, and I can make it where customer equals 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What's another number I have in there? Give me 1 second. Let me I want to do this so that you guys can understand. 100, 1,000. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll create an OR customer equal to 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or customer equal to 100, 1,000, and we'll group those guys. We'll make that an OR condition, and then we'll add status equal to approved. So this will show us any requests where the customer is 0, 1 million or 100, 1,000, and the status is approved. All right, so those are the three. Now you can get as fancy as you need to. There's no limit to how many different groupings you can have. You can group to your heart's content. Okay, you can do subgroups and so on. All right, so you get really sophisticated when you're trying to find something. And that all comes for free with the tool itself. Now we also have ways to batch approve, batch edit, and batch delete. These guys here are currently disabled. This batch delete the selected records. It won't let us delete because they're pending. If I had multiple that were not submitted, I can delete. I can also batch edit multiple records at once, where I can make a change. So let me do that real quick. We'll do 100, 1,000. We'll put in $1,000. We'll save that. So now I have two records here that are not submitted. I can batch delete them now, but I'm not going to. I can also batch edit. So I can change values all in one swoop. So I can take this and say change the credit limit for both of these records to 150,000. That may not be a good example, but it is possible. I guess I did 1.5 million, too many zeros. Right, but you can batch edit a bunch of data at one shot. The other thing you can do is submit multiple records. So there's a submit button down here. You can submit multiple records at a time, or you can submit one at a time. So if I uncheck these guys, this submit button here works on the data up here, where these buttons down here work on what's checked down here. So I'm just going to submit my colossal conglomerates. Okay. So I've submitted that for approval. And what it shows me is, when I go to my approval history tab, that we need 3 different approvals for this specific credit request to be enacted. The first approval is the finance group, and the finance group has 2 members, Jim Bird and Bob Buckley. Jim Bird has a little sailboat next to his name, so he's out of office. And John Simeon is the delegate for Jim. Next person in line is Craig Wolfus, and then finally Scott Carpens needs to approve. Now, we have sequential and simultaneous approvals. Sequential is one has to wait for the people before them to approve before they get notified. Simultaneous is they can approve at the same time, and we can do both on the same request. So we do have that example here. You'll see the sequence column. This determines whether it's simultaneous or sequential. If the number is the same, then it becomes simultaneous. If the number progressively gets higher, then it's sequential. So the first 2 guys, you have a little yellow icon here. Their approval is pending. They have both been notified via email that they need to approve this requisition. Scott, however, doesn't have a little circle yet because Scott has not been notified. He needs to wait until Craig and the finance group both approve this rec before Scott is notified. Okay? Now, when you have groups, only one member of the group is required to approve. We don't need everyone in the group to approve, only one member. All right, so Jim or Bob or John can approve. Before I go approve this stuff, we also have retract functionality. So I can retract this requisition, and you'll see now this icon turns blue. This has been retracted. All right. If I resubmit it, and when I retract, I can go ahead and make changes, of course, and then resubmit it. But you'll see now they're yellow again. What's changing is up here, this approval attempt. We keep track, this is approval attempt number 2. We keep track of all the approval attempts. So if I go to my first one, I'll see that it got retracted. It was rejected, some notes as to why it was rejected. But here's my second one, the one that's current, and I resubmitted it for approval. Now, how do the rules work? So let's jump to our rules screen. I have 2 rules built, these bottom 2 rules down here for this particular request type, the credit request. So the first one is just named test rule 1. It's approval sequence 11, and it requires 2 people to approve, the test group and Craig Wolfus. Those 2 people need to be on the list when this rule is true. Now, what makes this rule true are the conditions. And I don't have any conditions for this. Let me check this one. I don't have any there either. Okay. So we'll just have to talk about it. But you can build conditions. We'll do this real quick. You can pick any field on the request data, any field from the request data greater than 0. Any customer number greater than 01 is one type of condition that I'll choose. So if my customer was not started with 02, it wouldn't work. All right, so it would be false. But I can add additional. So if I click on you, I can say the entry date is greater than 12/31/2012. That's a fictitious one, but we can add as many as we want based on the data that's on the request itself. Okay. So that's how you create your rules. You can build ands and ors, and I think this is okay. I'm sorry. You can build ands and ors based on that, the amount and the rec date, and I think I accidentally overwrote one other one. The group determines ands and ors the same way as the searching that I showed you earlier can build your ands and or conditions. You can build your and or conditions in these rules. Right, I'm just going to delete these because I don't want them to mess up my demo. All right, but that's how you build conditions. So the first one, level 11, these are the approvers required. I have a second rule, level 20, this is the approver required. So you build the rules yourself, you determine what the conditions are, and you determine the sequence or the whether it's simultaneous or sequential for when and who gets inserted into the routing. All right, so that's the two 11s and the 20 that you see here. That's exactly where that came from. All right, I'm going to log in as Buckley, which is our first approver. Maybe not. Let's try that. All right. Oh, missing an L. Okay, so when I log in as Buckley, we can look at our credit increase here, but before so this is back to where we were. We have an approval queue, so I can click on this approval queue, and it would show me all of the request types that are out there that are waiting my approval. So you'll see in my system right now, I only have one request type that's waiting my approval. It's the credit increase that I just submitted earlier. I can go ahead and click on that, and it would show me that one record that I need to approve. Okay, so I can then simply click approve or reject to move that along through the process. All right, now my queue is empty. I can then log back in as the second guy in line. And I'll look at my queue. And this is that same one, but let's take a look at the approval history. So I had my finance group, and we approved it as Bob Buckley. So Bob Buckley's name is in there. It's now up to me. And notice Scott has still not been notified. I'll go ahead and approve. And let me just clear my search. We'll show you the approval history. Oh, that's not the right one. Nope, this one here. Okay, so now you'll see that Bob Buckley and Craig have both approved, and finally Scott was sent an email because everyone before him approved. So Scott was finally sent an email that it's now Scott's turn to approve this request. Okay, so we'll go back to my credit increase. And again, we're up to Scott. And what I want you to take note here is that the current credit limit is 20,000 out of QAD. That's also displayed here, 20,000. This these last four columns will come directly out of QAD, so you'll see here that I set it to 20,000 yesterday. So when I press approve here, what's going to happen is QAD is going to be updated, and you'll see now it's 1.5 million right here with today's date on it. Okay, so these are all the same record. That's why they all changed. They're all for Colossal. That's the current credit limit for Colossal. So they're all 1.5 million. But it just updated QAD as soon as I clicked on that approve button. All right, so there's the integration with QAD. Okay, so that takes care of this credit increase. We also have additional rec types. You know, you can build as many rec types as you need to, and you can build rules against each and every rec type, and those rules can be completely different. This is just another example of a screen that has the approval history. This is an item maintenance for RFQs. We're releasing a new product called iRFQ, which is going to allow you to build RFQs and send to the supplier. The actual items themselves that go onto those RFQs need to be approved. And this is just a different screen that I wanted to show you guys with some different fields. This is, you know, a little bit more real. A whole bunch of fields. We have a second tab with some shipping information. We've added additional buttons and such. So you can create as many forms as you need to in your organization. And that completes my demo. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Andy, or actually I think you have to pull it back yourself.
Terrific. Thank you, Frank. Okay. So this is where we were. And this is the call to action. So for anybody that is still left in our webinar, see that there's still some people left. Our call to action is to speak with your appropriate business managers if you're not a business manager yourself, because we have business managers on the line as well, to determine if there are any processes within your organization that may find a tool like this of value, and if in fact there is, to please contact us. There's a number of ways that you can contact us. You can send us an email directly at sales@issgroup.net, or you can contact me directly at aweinstein@issgroup.net, or you can call our 800 number at 888-547-7476. And last but not least, certainly you can just visit our website. There's a contact us form there, and you could also learn more about our iApprove solution as well as our other solutions, iPurchase, iQuote, iBridge, and iFramework. There's also some videos there that you can check out yourself, so feel free to do that. And again, if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to send us an email. And as I said, I'll be sending out a copy of this presentation to everybody who registered today for this event. So I think that concludes today's webinar. So thank you all so much for your attendance. We know that you're all very busy, and we do appreciate you taking the time to join us today. We hope you found it productive, and we hope you join us in our next webinar. Thank you all so much.